Hi, everyone. Welcome to UnMute, an output series to open up discussions on hard-hitting, often undiscussed topics in the music industry. Today, we are going to be talking about mental health in music. I'm Danny Deal, editorial director at Output, and we have a panel of amazing participants here with us today, 3 artists and 1 person who is a specialist over at MusiCares. I want you to welcome CRAY, Kittens, UnMute, and Erica Krusen, who is the managing director of the mental health and addiction services team at MusiCares. So to kick things off, I would love if everyone could go around, and I've already said your name, but if you could give a couple of sentences about who you are, what you do, and the music that you make, or in Erica's case, the work that you do. We'll start with CRAY.
Hi, my name's CRAY. My real name's Cheney. I'm a Twitch streamer, musician. I make pop alt-ish EDM type music, and I still DJ too. And I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. Erica?
Hi, I'm Erica, and I work at MusiCares. For those of you that don't know about MusiCares, we were started in 1989 by the Recording Academy to essentially safeguard the health and well-being of the music community. And I'm the managing director of the mental health and addiction services team, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Kittens.
Hi, I'm Kittens, but my real name is Lauren, so call me whatever. I'm a DJ, music producer, women's and LGBTQ advocate. I have a podcast now, and I make all kinds of music, but I'm definitely in the hip hop, R&B, and electronic dancey realm, and I have a lot of cats.
And last but certainly not least, UnMute.
Hey, what's up? I'm UnMute. My real name is Josh. I've been a touring musician for 16 years, and I have 2 kids, so that makes me a touring dad. And yeah, I'm just stoked to be here. And yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to be asking some questions to guide the conversation, but I want to emphasize that this is a safe space for you all to ask questions to the group and to dialogue with each other in a way that you may not be able to in the real world. So to kick things off, we'll leave this open, whoever wants to answer first. Why did you choose to be a part of this discussion? Why was it important for you to show up today?
I think I want to show up today. I'm always advocate about mental health. I have a Tuesday Real Talk with my Twitch stream called Real Talk, and we usually talk a lot about mental health things and what to focus on, and just bringing more clarity and like acceptance to the community, especially in music and in gaming, and the world, just for fans who don't even do music. I think it's something that's not talked about a lot. I think an artist is seen as this person who is like famous and successful and happy all the time because their Instagram posts. I think that kind of shows a different light, and it's hard to see the struggles of what a musician goes through, what touring is so rough, just being in the limelight so rough. And I feel like a lot of fans don't get to see that side, and it kind of makes us seem like we're the perfect individual, right? Like we have no mental health problems. We're rich, we're on the road, and we're living this perfect life, photography, la la la. But I think instead we should be sharing the reality of what we go through to show everyone that we're just like anybody else. We're just doing it on the road in front of people. So I'm always down to do these conversations to bring more light and clarity and acceptance to this topic and not make it so taboo.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like just like piggybacking off of what CRAY said, I like kind of just by default have no filter on Twitter. So I like to say whatever I'm feeling in the day. So like I have shared things, I've like overshared things that have also led to mental health conversations that I was like, oh, this is actually like, I don't know, I like becoming like an accidental advocate for it. I'm not necessarily wearing a badge, but I'm just like, you know, I'm comfortable talking about my mental health. I've been in therapy since I was 18. I'm 37 now. So I just feel like, you know, being on Twitter and having that platform, talking about things so openly takes away the stigma of mental health that's been there for a long time, not only for musicians, but also for like people of color and men of color, like it's just like something that like you're just sort of meant to look so tough and so on top of things at all times. And so yeah, I feel like very comfortable just being vulnerable in public.
So, I mean, same for me. I think the representation with all struggles across all facets of identity is so important, and that's definitely something that I share often and try to amplify my struggles and other people's ones, just so that somebody who maybe feels like they're alone in something they're going through, they can see that and feel less alone, and like they're not a crazy mess by themselves. Like, we're all kind of crazy messes, and we're all doing everything we can to be our best selves and navigate our struggles and live a fulfilling, healthy, balanced life. And I think the more we talk about difficulties that we all face as real people, the easier it'll be for others to accept themselves and find healthy ways to deal with their own issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've joined this. MusiCares is trying to really make sure that we continue to do everything that you guys have been talking about to help reduce the stigma that exists still out there. I think the music industry is doing a fairly decent job of trying to change that, but there's so much denial and secrecy that still afflicts so many communities and cultures across the world, that the message needs to continue in forums like this and with artists using their platforms. So I'm here to help with that and just talk about the resources that MusiCares is able to provide to the communities.
So I want to bring up a couple of stats to kick off the context of this conversation. A 2019 study found that nearly 3/4 of independent musicians have experienced stress, anxiety, and/or depression in relation to their work. And that number is 3 times higher than the average for the general population. This is something that affects artists in particular much more heavily than the average person. Why do you think that is?
I think for a bunch of reasons. I think for like the list is long, like I feel like it's one thing to struggle and be private about it, and it's one thing to struggle with thousands of people looking at you and judging your every move, and everything we're trying to do is right, especially on the road too. Like, it's so hard to like be a human being on the road. Like, I couldn't even imagine Josh 16 years. Like, I've been doing this for 6, and I'm already like it's like, it's just so taxing on your mental health because you're so focused on the road. You're touring, you're running around, you have no time to like sit and breathe and say, am I okay? You're going from these packed rooms to alone in a hotel room to then barely sleep to the next flight. Like, it really dampers on your mental health, especially relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, partners, like whatever that, it always affects all of that. And I think it's just really hard sometimes. And it sometimes does feel isolating because I'm trying to go on social media and build my platform. I'm not trying to be a downer and make you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to be really honest on social media, which I try to do, when everyone's posting the best of the best. Everyone's competing. They're posting the show photos. They're having a blast. They're partying. They don't want to show the sad part where they're crying, because is that going to get engagement? Is that going to get likes? Is that going to get so I feel like that pressure on an artist is just heavy, if I have to say.
I think also, I mean, definitely all that. I think we've probably all experienced those contrasting highs and lows, and going from that really intense energy and feeling validated to like isolated and miserable in a quiet hotel room in some random city. But I think also there's something not only with being an artist, but I'm sure just self-employed people in general experience the same thing, of the uncertainty. Because with most career paths, you have the trajectory, this is this step, and then I'm going to make this amount this year, and I know it's going to continue to grow every year, and I'm going to be set when I'm old. And, especially with the pandemic as well, like, we all stopped touring. Like, so that just made our uncertainty even worse. And I think no matter how great your career is and how much engagement you're getting and how validated you are and how many streams you're getting or whatever it is, that could all change tomorrow. People could just stop caring about you tomorrow. And knowing that in the back of your mind, no matter how successful you are, knowing that things could change in an instant and that you won't be able to maintain this thing forever is so terrifying. and stress inducing and anxiety inducing, and having to grapple with building something for yourself while having the uncertainty, while having the insecurities, and just maintaining general basic human mental health needs of like rest and decompression and all that. It's like, it's really hard. It's really hard.
It's hard enough to do just in general for, I feel
Right.
like the general population, just like, oh, meditate on a regular basis,
Yeah.
eat healthy, whatever. But then you take your circadian rhythms and throw them into a blender, and you go all over the place and you throw your whole schedule off. It's almost impossible to do. So I feel you on that. I will say, as far as what Kitten said about the uncertainty of it, that's a huge part for me. That's like a huge trigger for me, and something that like prevents me from being creative or like enjoying this as much. Is that like at the end of the day, you know, after doing this so long, this is a business that I've been in, and I've been in so many ups and downs. I've gone from headlining Coachella to playing to 100 people to playing whatever. Like, it's like I've seen all of it. And once you've had a taste of something like some of the limelight, you never want to go back. But it does happen, you know, and I have had part of that. Another part that I wanted to add on that Kitten said is like, we're independent contractors. We're like, we're like small business owners to a certain extent. And like, one thing I've noticed with my friends that have careers where they have a boss is that they punch out and they go home, and they can turn that part of their brains off to some extent, you know, like they might think about work a little bit, but it's not like us where I feel like we're thinking about work 365, like 24/7. And so that's been a big struggle as well that I've experienced, is just like losing sleep over it, you know, because I'm just literally like always trying to think of what I need to do next. Am I doing enough? And I'll say this also to like other musicians that are listening to this right now and watching it. It doesn't matter where you are on like the success list. Like, you're always looking up and seeing like who's doing it better than you, who's doing it bigger than you, especially with social media, like CRAY said, in a time where everyone's just posting the best of the best. No matter where you are, you're going to sort of fixate on some level on like the people that are doing better than you, and you're going to want to be bigger. So that constant chase is really exhausting too.
It's exhausting, especially if you're like, let's say I'm like, you know what, I really need a mental health weekend. I'm taking off my phone, and then you get on Monday and it's like, oh, you've missed this and this, and people are getting triple interaction, and they also got a booking because you didn't respond, and like then you're just with this guilt of like, I took time for myself, and now I feel worse than when I did take a break. So now it's like 24/7, the phone's next to my bed. If it beeps, I'm like, what am I missing? What do I need to get on? And I feel like that's like a lot of pressure for anybody.
Right. And then also I'll add one last thing, is that the platforms change around you. Like, I got big off MySpace. That was the first like social media that like I made my name off of, you know? So like the MySpace game was different than the Facebook game, was different than the Instagram game, which is different than the TikTok game. And so you as a musician have to constantly be mastering these different like
and starting from zero
social media platforms, and starting from zero. I have like 3 posts on TikTok. I don't know what to do. I'm like, do I dance?
I'm like too old. I feel like I'm like trying to fit in with a crowd.
Right, straight up. I feel like such a phony on TikTok. I'm like, what? But like straight up, like it's just a part of it that you don't talk about. And I mean, obviously, if you're big enough, you have a team and you can really like make it happen. But like for indie people and people who are sort of in the middle of it like us, I feel like it's like we're tasked with knowing how to master every platform.
And also exclusive content for Instagram, exclusive content for Twitter, exclusive content for TikTok, and for YouTube. And it's like all exclusive content. It can't be the same content because then it shadow bans your posts. And then, so I'm like at home trying to make 600 different concepts for each different social media, trying to like I was a musician. I just wanted to be on stage. And now it's like a whole other part of the job that I had no idea. And I'm trying to learn how to do.
Yeah. On the fly.
On the fly.
And you know what's so interesting, Danny, is listening to all of you talk, and it's not anything new that, you know, we haven't heard. You know, the pandemic kind of cracked open this giant egg for all of us. And I say us that aren't artists, finally got to see what you guys are talking about. You know, that financial insecurity, that uncertainty, that loss of connection, that loneliness from the social distancing. Like, it's amazing how we are able to kind of connect better and really understand that role that you guys are in and how that feels. And look, I think all of us experienced anxieties and depression and, loneliness and on and on. So it's really interesting to hear you guys talk about that.
And I think like on top of having to like do all social media, we also have to deal with people shitting on us, which is like when I'm down and low, like usually it doesn't bother me. Of course, we're pretty tough people out here. But like when I see that I'm ugly or stupid or my music's bad on a bad day, it's just like on top of me feeling sad, now I have 6 comments about either objectifying my body or telling me that music isn't good or that I'm ugly. And it's just like on top of everything, now we have to deal with that. And it's just like, fuck, it's just the internet's rough.
Well, it's like, what other job do you have? I mean, like, unless you're in like professional, like you're a professional athlete or you're like an entertainer on some level where you're constantly under review.
Right.
Like most jobs you get like, there's a review period where it's like, all right, cool, we're going to like check on what you're doing and see your progress and da-da-da. And you might be like a stressful week or a stressful like month even. But like for us, every day is a test to see, like, well, what's this? How are you doing? Checking in. Even if you're paying attention to social media like that, like, is my post engaging as well as this person's or da-da-da-da-da. It's like, it's just constant. So it's really exhausting.
So I'm curious, what do you 3 do then when it gets that exhausting, when it gets overwhelming?
I mute everything. I honestly have notifications off for every app. I have my phone on like do not disturb. I try not to look at it before bed. There's certain things I do. Comments. I actually don't look at comments anymore because I feel like that was just like taking up so much of my time and having to delete mean ones and then respond to nice ones. I feel like that was just like clouding like my entire vision of myself as well. So I was like, it hurt my mental health and how I saw myself in the mirror. So I just stopped honestly engaging and looking at those things. Like I just had to like close that door.
That's totally fair. I've definitely had dark periods for myself too, where the best thing I can do for myself is to just turn off everything and not look at my phone, any device, the little screen, the medium screen, or the big screen, none of them. Kittens, what about you? How does this particularly affect you in your day-to-day life?
Sorry, there's like a lawnmower hearing in the background. Honestly, I have to do the same usually. I have to not look because I start obsessing and I'll start obsessing over the negative talk. But yeah, it's hard. And so that doesn't always work because even if I'm not looking, I'm thinking about it. And one comment, one word can stick with me for weeks. So I have to find ways to balance it out, whether it is like I do meditate, not as much as I should anymore. I was really good about it for a while. But I'll meditate, I'll journal. And my therapist years ago really gave me a good exercise that I love doing now when I'm feeling pretty down. And she says you set a timer and write a list of good things about yourself, list of things that you like about yourself. And you just have to keep writing, and you can repeat the same things over and over, but you just have to continue writing for that whole period.
I do that too.
And that just helps me so much because it's just balancing out all the negative self-talk with positive stuff. And it doesn't even have to be corny affirmations. It can be as simple as like, I make really good burritos. I don't know. Simple stuff like that. Just things to elevate your little self-worth battery so that you can keep moving forward and not get dragged down too bad.
It's so funny too how like all the like sort of cliche stuff just works. Yeah. Like it's like, oh man, like this is so like, I mean, like as we're saying it in the back of our heads, we're like, oh, this is kind of corny that I'm like doing this, but then like you're like, damn, but like I feel better. Like this is actually like helping me. To answer the question, like I will obsessively clean my house or like anything mindful, anything where like I don't have my phone, but I'm doing something. Because like a trigger for me is like being lazy. So like if I put my phone down and like just rest, like just like lay in bed or take like a nap or something, I don't feel good afterwards. I'm like, man, I could have done something. I should have been more productive.
Guilt.
So I always, it's like, I get super guilty about it. So I find it's always super helpful for me when, if I am taking a break from social media, if I am taking a break from just the screen time or whatever, I'll put a podcast on and like do the dishes and pay bills and like try and do something so that I can like take my mind off of that stuff, but also at the same time get something done. And in the end of the day, a lot of times I'll come up with song ideas or like creative ideas in that time. Like if I'm running or if I'm exercising, that's the best time for me to think. So when I have the stamina to do it and I'm not collapsing out of exhaustion, like that's a great way for me to like, you know, get away from that.
And I love how you said that, talked about just moving. Movement is so important, I think, when just to kind of get out of your head and get out of your space. And it's all about redirecting the brain and the thoughts, right? So if you're sitting in this room and you're fixating on what you were reading or you want to keep reading, literally pick yourself up and go outside, go to a different room, because we can get stuck in that physical space and we get in a rut. So it's important to get on your bike, take a walk, or journal, or wash dishes, or, by the way, cleaning is great, you know. So anything that is just some movement and away from that physical space. Just, you know, I always tell my clients, if any of you, I mean, you're a dad, you know this, when your baby is little and they're screaming or crying or they can't get something that they want, what do a lot of moms or dads do? We pick them up and we take them to a window, or we have them look outside, right? What happens? They stop crying because their brain is redirected. And it's the same kind of concept that we can do with ourselves when we're fixated on something or we're down about something. Just change the scenery.
I'm happy. Oh, go ahead.
I think just what you said about cleaning and getting something done, it reminded me, because I definitely do that too. Like I will legit be on my hands and knees scrubbing the toilet because I'm like, I need to do something. But I realized what that is because especially in our line of work, we don't have the like, here's my project and it's done. Here's my dopamine rush because I finished a thing and I'm productive and I'm a good person, especially in capitalist society. Yay, I did it. We don't have that same type of like, I don't know, cycle. It doesn't work in the same order as people with normal jobs. So we'll sit there and kind of, you know, go through this existential, what am I doing with my life? Am I good enough? Self-worth critiquing thing that you can get stuck in really easily. And finding other ways to have here's my thing I need to do. I'm going to do it. Now it's done. And I can look at it being done. And now I get that dopamine rush. Now I feel my self-worth and my value because I finished a thing really helps. So not even just with like dealing with negative comments and stuff, but just the uncertainty and the lack of, you know, we're working on projects for years. Sometimes people are working on their music forever and working on putting a project out forever. And so you're in this limbo of like dumping your emotions and energy into something without getting that reward after of, hey, it's out now and people like it. And I get my A+ for the day. We have to wait so long for that. So finding little ways to give our brain that treat, that reward,
pat on the back,
whether it is just, I did the dishes today, like that helps so much because I feel like our brains they crave and are severely lacking that. And we can't always rely on social media for that validation and that dopamine that we need. Like we can't rely on people for that all the time. So it's nice to have another option.
I feel like it's the reason why in our industry where we release singles now instead of albums. It's like we have to constantly have something to drop and put out there because fans engage with an album that took 2 years of your life to make the same way they'll engage with a photo that you took at the beach for like 2 seconds of your life. Like it doesn't matter to the internet or to an algorithm what you actually put into it. And then also Kittens, I feel I agree with you 100% that like it's nice just to give yourself a little dopamine to like cross something off the list and be like, this is done. Like Dana, I can hear you typing.
Okay.
But like just like being able to say like this is done, but then also there's like a control element to it as well. I think like being able to have some sort of control over a part of your life, because as touring musicians, as professional musicians, there's so much of this that goes on that's out of our control. You know, like you can work on a project for so long, and then when you drop it, the reaction is completely out of your control. Whether some kid says shit, some kid from Iowa is like, and you just think about that for like a month. You're like, no, whatever. Like, it's like cleaning your house is all you know, you're like, I'm going to turn this podcast on. I'm going to like smoke a joint and then like clean this entire place. And when it's done, you're like, I did that. And no one had any other say in it.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like in a song, you drop a song, it's not done because every day there's feedback on it from years. I still got feedback on my song I dropped 5 years ago. So I feel like the task can never be checked off because it's still focusing on it. I'm still like, oh God, it's right there.
right. That snare.
I'm like,
will
why?
will haunt you forever.
Literally.
So all of that being said, how do you navigate a system like the music industry that feels like it's set up for people to get to a point of exhaustion, of burnout and anxiety?
You have to develop coping mechanisms, I think. I feel like for me, I was in the business for 10 years practically before I figured out what I needed to do, which was, this is just me, but like I thrive on routine and I thrive on like organization. I have to make lists. I have to try and like do things in some sort of like organized way, which, as you guys know from touring, is like, it's nearly impossible. There's so many variables and moving parts in a tour that you can't control. So any little bit of control that I could hold on to would help me maintain my sanity. And so for me, I was like, as soon as I land, check in the hotel, put on my workout clothes and get into the gym. That was something that on the road, like, helped me center myself and helped me like find some sort of like, just a little like serotonin boost, like to get through like whatever jet lag or whatever I was feeling at the time. But again, that's just a coping mechanism. Like, it's not the same for everyone. It was just, that was the case for me. I was like, this is something that really helps me. Meditation as well. But CRAY, Kittens, I don't know what you guys have, any kind of rituals or anything that you guys do on the road.
I feel like it's always evolving. Like, you know, there's been tours where I've been depressed, anxiety in the hotel room, 10 minutes before the set, then at the set, then back in the hotel room, like not leaving my hotel room, which is a really dark period where I was like, why am I doing this? I don't like it. And then I got to a point where it's like, you know what? I'm traveling the world. How lucky am I? So then I had this rule, like, no matter what, I'm going to find something to do in each city I'm in. So like whatever it is of that city, because like I need to explore more, which that helped me a lot because I'm like getting outside, I'm seeing the energy, I'm seeing people. I'm like, that really helped me kind of like not be so depressed in my bedroom, like crying, you know? So that's kind of my new rule now is like get to the hotel room, go out, go see something. One thing, if it's dinner, if it's the biggest peach in the world, whatever each state has, go see it, enjoy it, experience it. Also stop party. I can't party on the road. I can't drink on the road. I think that just gets me into a spiral where it's like, if I'm just like, you know, drinking is a downer and it kind of makes me sad. And like, so I kind of stopped like that, like 4 a.m. party after the set, then go to the next set. Like that kind of energy was really bad for my mental health too. So I just kind of stopped partying on the road. And now it's like a job. It's a true job. I want to treat it like a job, like a 9 to 5 in my head. For my routine's sake, that's how I also work really well on routines as well. And it's hard when you're on the road because everything's changing. So just being able to like set small little routines in your own self is like really important. And that's kind of what I do. And also therapy on the road. I have a therapist on the road that we do Skypes with, which is really important to me as well.
I found too, like the routine thing. I don't work out, so I wasn't going to get to the hotel and go work out. But my small thing is like cleaning and organizing really, really does something for me. So whenever I get to a hotel, I unpack my toiletries. I set everything up in a like really pleasing way. And when we stopped touring because of the pandemic, I realized something that I was missing so much was, for me, routine became being in a different place all the time.
Right.
And then being in the same place every day was it threw me. It really threw me.
Mindfuck.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to do something. And I figured out, I was like, I'm going to go stay at a hotel literally down the street from my house. And being in a new place, even if it was down the street, and just unpacking my toiletries was so satisfying. And I was like, oh my God, this feels so normal. And like, I'm going to pay way too much money for these pretzels in my room. But
here I am. Yeah.
It was that routine thing. And I was like, you know, sometimes you don't realize the routine things you do when you're traveling because your environment's changing all the time. but you have these little coping things. And when you don't have those anymore, you miss them because you realized you started to really like lean on them, and they made you feel good when you were not in your comfort zone.
Yeah, and you gotta not be hard on yourself when you're, you know, it's so challenging that you're not going to be perfect every single time. You know, like CRAY was saying, not partying, like that's something that I struggle with. It's like I have performance anxiety, so alcohol has always been something that I've like leaned on, like, oh, just a couple beers or like a shot, even a shot before my set. It's like just a little something
Ease the nerves.
to ease the nerves and like get me through it. And you know, I struggled with it for a while, and I got to a point that I was just like, you know what, it's okay. And when I started to ease up on myself and not be like beating myself up for it, then I found myself playing sober and not being like so stressed by it. So it's like, it's this weird balance where you got to like have these coping mechanisms and have these sort of rules, but also at the same time, like just be gentle with yourself and just be easy with yourself on the road, because you are doing something that's incredibly hard. That, not to be like successful and being like, oh, I'm struggling with success, suffering from success or whatever, but like it really is a really tough job at the end of the day that is not comparable to a lot of people. Most of my friends, like I grew up working class, so most of my friends are like just like union pipe fitters. They can't relate to me in any way other than the fact that we both like the White Sox, you know, and like drink beer. So it's like, so it's hard to like go and complain to them and be like, God, like my life is so hard. They're like, yeah, right, you got that cushy room in the hotel, da, da, da. Like they don't really fully understand it. So you have to be that person that's also there to talk to yourself and say like, hey man, like this is a really hard job, and it's okay to not hit the gym as soon as you get in, or to just take a rest if you really need it, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying too. You know, I work with a lot of musicians in private practice, and, you know, CRAY, like you were saying, it's important to make sure you find a good therapist that will do those, you know, texting, FaceTime, Skype, whatever it is, and keep with it. You know, it's amazing how easily you can get into those new routines, right? Oh, I'm up late, I'm partying, and I'm sleeping in, so I'm not exercising, I'm not running, I'm not talking to my therapist, I'm not doing those routines I had at home that made me feel so much better, right? So it's important you do that. And then also, I think it's also important that you guys talk to your managers and your tour managers. You know, you were saying, CRAY, I think you were saying that, you know, you look now for things in different cities, like the biggest ball of twine or whatever, you know, tell your tour manager, like, hey, can we get these in our books, you know, in our master tour or whatever, of where are some fun things to do. If you like golf, where's the golf course? If you like movies, you know, things like that. And then lastly, what I keep hearing from a lot of artists too is that the management needs to know, to hear from you. If you're flying overseas, go in a day early, pay for that, you know, let them pay for that extra room if you can find it in the budget. I know that might be a privileged thing, but book that extra room so you have that extra day to kind of relax and acclimate to the environment and the time zones, you know. And then, or if you're just constantly on the road and you're on, you know, for those that are in vans versus buses or whatever, like every 3 days, get a hotel room, you know, don't try and just slum it. Take that extra little bit of money, don't spend it on partying one night, and spend it on a hotel, and take care of your sleep and your health.
I actually brought up an idea. I wanted to ask you guys a question today because I've been talking a lot with my boyfriend. He's also a musician. We've been talking about how we think it should be mandatory for agents to put their first touring artist through like a seminar on how to tour and what comes with touring. So I feel like not only is there this lack of like how to treat women with respect, how the fans, how to have that power over like there's that whole aspect. There's a partying aspect. There's a mental health aspect. I feel like there's so many things that touring, just going out on the road for your first time, not knowing what the fuck's going on, is gonna be so rough. Like my first tour was so rough, and I would love to be able to have resources to be like, am I gonna be feeling sad? What is right and wrong here? What are all these things, and how do I go through this? Because I feel like a lot of artists get thrown on the road at a young age, good luck, and they're making the money, so no one really cares to check in. No one really cares what they're doing. No one cares what they're doing in their bus. No one cares who's in their bus. Like those things to me, I'm like, your team has to like be there and be like, what the hell's going on? You know, like I feel like there's just lack of that in touring.
That's so awesome. I feel like 100% that's right. And like, I've been with a few management companies over my career, so I've got to see sort of how different management companies work their artists differently. I've been with management companies that were really hands-on and cared about their artists and were really like checking in on a regular basis. And then I've been with big companies that typically the bigger the company, the more of just like the money machine it is, that they're just like, we will literally work you until you die, and then we don't actually care. So you can literally tour 367, 366 a year, and it's not even a big deal. So, but I love that idea of having some sort of like, before you start any job, you typically have to have some sort of training for it. So it'd be awesome to have a little, straight up, like just like, it should be like governed outside of, a specific agency. It should just be required learning.
I literally think it should be mandatory, because like then we can stop all the there's so many consent issues. There's issues of kids not knowing if they can, to bring girls on the bus who are underage and not checking IDs. Like there's so many things that are just like not common knowledge for a touring artist, especially a young person who like doesn't know anything yet. Like I think those resources we would skip all of this awfulness if we just were open about what's going on and talking about it and have a resource there so people can go, hey, you know what? I'm struggling on the road. I need to go look at this and understand. I have questions. What do I do? And I have that resource.
Sounds like a really good opportunity for MusiCares to develop an initiative.
Well, we are putting that together. We're doing a mental health 101 and a touring 101. So look for those to come, and we're going to keep them we're going to record them and keep them in a library on our website.
I love that.
And we'll have lived experience, people like yourselves to come on, along with it and talk about those things. All the pitfalls.
I think it's so important. I think it's so important, especially for young, I'm 28, but like there's artists who are 16 getting thrown on the road and they're making mistakes. Of course they are. They have no idea. They're children. They're growing up and they have no examples or anywhere for like, this is how it should be. This is okay. This is not okay.
That's right.
Absolutely. A lot of the people that are here, well, actually all of you have talked about some of the things that you've gone through, and many of you have said that you're very vocal on social media about the things that you go through. What's the reception been like when you do share your experiences, and has there been any stigma around it, or do you see stigma happening with other folks that are in the music industry in relation to mental health?
I've seen some interesting stuff where like some people definitely share a lot more about their mental health struggles. And then I've seen people like they're, fans, I wouldn't even call them that if they're saying these things, but being like, all she does is talk about how she's depressed, and like, it's like, she's probably depressed all the time.
It's never enough, or it's too little.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really a bummer to see, but I'm glad people are still sharing. And I think it's important as peers to also know, like sometimes I'll see someone post like they're going through a hard time, and I can see that and reach out to them and be like, hey, are you good? Because, we all know what that feels like. And so it's nice to see that. And then there's the other side of it where people are like, thank you for sharing this. Like, I thought I was alone, and this makes me feel seen and heard, and like, just not alone. So yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it's a lose-lose, because like you go on and I'm really open about it, but I get a lot of like, you're just a sensitive girl, and like, you're a famous DJ. How could you complain? Like I have that when I talk about it. And then I have the other side where it's like, you've really helped me through this. So it's like, it's worth it, of course. But like the other side of people being like, you're just a music page. Why are you talking about you're sad? Like, it's like, what? Like, there's just like this whole generation of like internet, which I don't understand. And like, it's something that I struggle with. And like, I'm always going to be very open, and it's okay. I know it comes with hate, but like, why would it even, sometimes my brain doesn't understand why it even comes with hate. Like, I'm a human being. We're all human beings. Like, why do you see us as something that is different, that we're above mental health? Like, we are perfect. We're never sad because we're DJs. Like, what? Why?
It's that whole like hurt people thing. Like, I guarantee you the person that's sitting there just waiting to just say something shitty to you is doing that to every other artist, and they have a million accounts, and it's a whole like they're they need their own help and their own guidance in a way. But at the end of the day, we are real people. The things that we read online, obviously, as we all know, the negative shit sticks with you a lot longer than the positive. You could have 1,000 people say like, you're so strong, thank you for sharing, I can relate. But the one person that hits on something that might trigger you, or hits on something that you're sensitive about or you're insecure about, that is what haunts you, and that's what sticks with you. So I want to say this also is like, it seems a little like with social media, you're in control of what your brand is. And you don't want to make your brand like I'm the sad guy, or I'm the I'm the mental health advocate. It's like I am a musician, and at the end of the day, I want people to come to me for music. So it's like I can't share every aspect of my mental health or everything. So you do have to filter, or at least I feel I have to filter it a little bit, as well as like filtering my family. I made the mistake of putting so much of my family online. I was like, look at my kids, look at my life, and that my social media became something that people ended up coming to just to see like an Instagram family, you know? So it's like, you just have to do, it's like a balancing act basically, where you can let people know and you can check in, which I try to do when I'm really feeling overwhelmed, or if I'm feeling really positive, I like to share that also at the same time. But if it dominates the conversation, then I feel like that, you know, takes away from you as an artist.
Totally. And I feel like it's really easy. Like it's hard sometimes as a fan to see that like every social media of a person you look up to is putting what they want you to see and perceive. Right. So it's like sometimes it's like, oh, CRAY would never do that. Do you know if CRAY wouldn't, though? Just because I've been posting what I want to post. It's not like I'm sitting at home and everything just posts for me. I'm posting exactly what I want you to see. So sometimes it's really hard when a fan goes, oh, no, that person would never, ever do that. When it's like, do you know that person? Because everything you see is what they're posting. So it's like, if I was only, I know that I don't follow anymore, any people that are like hurting me when I was looking at their page. Like I want to see real, I want to see honesty. I want to see artists like talking about things that I also go through. I don't want to see the perfect life all the time, you know, because that hurts me. So it's like, I really want to do that as well. And you're right. It's a skirting, it's a line, it's a balance act. Like you can't share too much because then you're too involved and it's too much judgment, but you can't share too little because then you're not even a person. So it's like, where's this balance and how do I get there?
Yeah, you have to toe the line. There's a sweet spot for sure, because you have to be authentic on some level. I feel like people, like fans, they will fuck with you if you are authentic, but if you're too authentic, it's like cringeworthy. You're like, okay, that's a little too much information.
TMI,
That's a little TMI, right?
Aside from that, at least for me personally, I try to be as authentic as possible online, but feeling the need to respond to everyone or to be constantly sharing and to be on all of these platforms in and of itself is emotionally exhausting for me. And I know that it means a lot to the people that are on the receiving end, but having to be responsive to the world and their whims 24/7 completely depletes me and makes me sad at the end of the day.
I've had a handful of times where, and I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, but you know, you want to engage with everyone. You want to, especially people who are positive and you know, like, oh, they're like legit a fan and they're here and they've been here for, like, you want to validate them and acknowledge them and thank them for giving a shit about you. But there's many times, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, where it goes a bit too far and then they're like, oh, we're friends and there's no boundaries now. And they will just, you know, DM constantly, why aren't you responding to me? And like, you know, it can get really, really scary. Like I've had things turn into stalker situations that I had to get LAPD involved. And, you know, some people just don't have the boundaries. So now when I start noticing somebody's expecting and feeling like entitled to my energy or access to me, and they're not even with my friends though, I do this, but especially with internet strangers, I set those boundaries. And if somebody's crossing the boundary, I will absolutely let them know. I don't just not respond. I say like, hey, this is not cool. And, you know, I set the boundary very clearly. You know, I appreciate you, but I don't have the capacity to answer these things or respond to you all the time. And like, you know, thanks for supporting whatever, something so that, you know, like, hey, I'm a real person. You can't engage with me that way. You can't expect these things of me because I'm only one person and I can't respond to every single comment, every single DM, every single day. And like a picture of your cat you're sending me, like I can't. So
it's a lot of work.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kittens, if you want me to stop DMing you, just like tell me, all right?
No,
I love
it. Today. He's having the cutest cat.
I'm like an uncle to Kittens. Like anytime I see a cat on like the internet, I'm like, oh, let me just send it over to Kittens.
I love it.
Love that.
I love it. People just spam me with cat content, and I'm like, thank you. It
all
does
you get.
Serotonin.
That's all you get. It's like I remember my mom went through this phase where she really loved salt and pepper shakers, and so like they're like, oh, well, Kathy wants salt and pepper shakers, so every birthday, Christmas, whatever, and she had to put out a family like guys, thank you so much. This is it for the
Too many.
Switch it up. Give me something a little different. It was like she had a salt and pepper shaker for everything.
That's amazing.
That's so good. And now I feel better about the fact that I send Kittens a lot of cat memes, because sometimes I feel like maybe it's too much.
Everyone does. My girlfriend and her mom do still. And I'm like, sorry guys, I tell them, I'm like, I can't respond to all of them. Did you get my memes? Yes, I got them.
I feel bad because like all I share with Kittens is Pauly D. Like me and Kittens love Pauly D. So I just send her just constant Pauly D content. Not cute kittens. Oh, God.
The fact that Instagram made the double tap heart like a message thing, that helps me a lot.
Yeah.
That's my way of like dealing with those like sort of obsessive fans where I check my DMs, you know, so I'm just like reading through, and if it's someone that sends me stuff all the time, I'm just like tap tap, move on. And
also
it's like
the general tab.
Yeah.
The general tab, yeah. But for me, it's like just to like, it validates them enough, you know. And like I get it, like you got to put up your boundaries. I feel like you guys both as women have to really be mindful of that, because like I don't know, I just feel like I know guys who have stalkers, but so many of my female like model and artist friends have like so many stalkers. Like y'all get like trolled so much harder on the internet, stalked so much harder. So I feel like I'm a little bit, it's like a little male privilege where I can like just be like, whatever, I don't fucking care. But yeah, I do the double tap just to like sort of acknowledge it and say like, hey, and then like, but not like actually have to engage with like a conversation.
Right.
So bringing things into a slightly different direction, piggybacking off of that study that I mentioned way earlier in the conversation, there's a second half to that data that I think is really interesting. So the first half was that about 3/4 of independent musicians have experienced stress, anxiety, and or depression in relation to their work. Now, out of that group, only about 1/3 said that they sought help for it. It was a very low percentage. So I'm wondering why you think this is, and what could the music industry do better to help support those who are in need?
I think there's a lot of factors, and I think one of them is just being able to ask for help is a really hard thing to do. And having to say, I need help, especially for men, being taught, you know, boys don't cry, you know, act like a man, be a man. I think asking for help is just a really hard step. The first step is the hardest step. And I feel like I was pushed to do therapy by my parents when I was 11. So I grew up being like, therapy is great. But I know people who are like, therapy's for crazy people. I'm not crazy. And it's like, it's not for crazy people. Everyone needs therapy because everyone has their own shit. So it's like just normalizing that it's normal. A lot of other artists go through it. I feel like it's hard. Like I don't see a lot of artists talking about the therapy they go through. So maybe just being able to be more open about it. Like I said, even adding like resources for artists. So like if they don't feel like they even have to ask, they can just go to a thing where there is the resource and they could ask their team and be like, is this possible? Because it's really hard to Google on the internet therapy in my area. You know, it's kind of like, what am I doing? Who am I asking for? Is it expensive? Like I feel like that's just a hard step, and that some people just would rather act like everything is fine. So I feel like it's just not normalized enough either.
I think also too, just the actual payment and resource access thing, because most musicians, unless you're like, you know, killing it, are on some kind of shitty health insurance plan. Like health insurance is really expensive, and a lot of plans have terrible mental health resources. So you're factoring in this whole extra cost, and then finding somebody that you even feel comfortable with. If you've never even done therapy, like I've been in therapy since I was a kid. So I'm, you know, I know what I'm looking for, and I know I can try somebody. And if I don't vibe with them, like cool, I'll find someone else. But for other people, getting up the nerve to be like, okay, I need to ask for help. I need to find help. How can I afford it? How can I find somebody that is going to be right for me? And then they finally like get it together and go to somebody, and maybe it's not the right fit the first time, and then boom, their whole shit
like,
is not.
Yeah.
So I think having I know there's different types of like websites and resources where you can find, if you're like a queer woman of color, you can find a therapist that caters to people like you and your experience. So I think having resources and access, and honestly healthcare for musicians in general, is like the fact that we don't have something like SAG.
And it's like more common for managers to even poke the question, right? To even say like, hey, this is usually normal in a lot of artists. Would you like the resource? Would you like to talk? Would you like to find someone? Whoa, whatever it is. Like I have therapy actually like in my tour budget in my tour, like on my spreadsheets with my team. So it's like, you know, normalizing that and be able to ask that, because it's easier to ask your manager. It's easier for your manager to go, hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk to someone? Than me go, hey, is it okay if I talk to like, you know, I'm on the road, I'm busy. Like, is it okay if I talk to someone? I feel like just like even normalizing that conversation within teams is like really important.
Okay, I gotta speak up. Danny, you know, you do have that, Kittens. It's MusiCares. Anyone in the music community can call MusiCares, and we have a huge network of therapists and psychiatrists and dual diagnosis treatment facilities.
Oh, wow.
And
Why did I not know?
it's amazing to think that a lot of people still don't know a lot about what we do, but we not only help find you a good therapist or a second one or a third one if you don't vibe with them, because that is important. I always tell every client that. But we also cover some of the expenses to get you through, at least for a few months of weekly therapy, and sometimes more than that. You know, therapists call us all the time and say, hey, I know their grant has ended or has been exhausted, but we're really, you know, driving it home right now and they need a little bit more. And we have the ability, the healthy budget to do that for people. So please know that that exists. The other thing is you mentioned resources. During I mean, we've always collected a lot of resources, but during COVID, we really stepped it up. And I have a giant list that we promote on our socials all the time, not only just general, but for Latinx and BIPOC and the LGBTQ communities, we've got those resources too. We're trying to post them as much as we can, just so that people know that there are those options available. And then lastly, I don't know if you guys know this, but we had started before COVID. We had 5 support groups, 5 to 7 support groups. They were emotional and addiction recovery, and they were across the country in different cities. And so the idea was the touring musician could stop in these major cities and go to a meeting. Wow. When COVID hit, we had to immediately switch gears and put them all online, which was amazing. So you could be in San Francisco and go into an emotional support group in New Orleans, you know, that normally you wouldn't have been able to. And now we have 10, which is amazing. Wow. Weekly. We have 3 specific to the Black community, the LGBTQ community, and the women's community. And so it's pretty cool. All you have to do, those are listed on our website. All you have to do is email the clinician that's leading that group. They'll tell you the time and date, and you get right in.
That's amazing.
Cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, MusiCares is dope. I found you guys, I think it was at House of Blues, you guys, on one of our tour dates, you were doing custom earplugs, like custom molded earplugs for people in the backstage. And I was just like, oh, okay, like how much is this or whatever? And you're like, no, it's free. Like we're doing, like, you know, if you guys know like how much like molded earplugs cost, like I was like, it was insane. So I was just like, oh, this is amazing. So I got my earplugs, and obviously Danny is an advocate as well. So she's told me all about them. So I love the work that you guys do. I don't use you because I pay an exorbitant amount of money for insurance. So I just like use my like own insurance. But honestly, for other artists that don't have access to MusiCares, you guys are like perfect for that. So I'm sorry, real quick. When we were talking about, you were talking about what we were experiencing on tour, or Danny, what was the question originally? I'm sorry.
It was more about what are the things that we can do better as an industry, because there are so many pitfalls, and there are, CRAY has brought this up several times, if there are systems that are in place, but there's systems that are set up for people to fail in these certain areas. So what can we do as an industry to make things better for all of you and for the next generation of artists?
Right. So that was it again, like with the stigma around it. That's such a huge part. So obviously even the panel that we're doing right now is huge for that. But I feel like on like even just a peer-to-peer level, it really helps a lot. Like to talk about mental health. Like I have like professional contacts that I don't talk to about mental health, but then I have like a decent handful of other musicians that I talk about this stuff with, and we collectively can like share. We have like a safe space and like a group chat where we can actually talk about these kind of things. And it's not everyone, but there's definitely like a peer group that I have. So I will say this for touring musicians, find your people. Like, find your people on the road that you can be open with, that you can actually relate to. Because, like I said, like, my childhood friends don't relate to this at all. They think I'm like silly if I just complain about my life. But if you talk to people that are actually going through it with you, and people that are living the same life as you or very similar, it does help, because they do take what you're saying very seriously, because they experienced it last night too. Hard shows are tough to deal with. Sometimes it might be as immediate as that. Like, I have a tough gig, you know, where the crowd wasn't feeling it. I'm immediately turning on myself and saying, oh, you didn't do good enough, or you should have played this or that. I have my little list of people that I can say, like, oh God, tonight sucked. Where are you at? What are you doing? Da da da. You know,
just to release that energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's super helpful. I have a question though for the group. What do you guys do when like fans talk to you about being musicians, or like when like up and coming musicians who aren't big ask you like what do I have to do or whatever? Because I find myself like, I try not to be jaded, because I want people to like chase their dreams, but I'm also like, with my own children, I'm like, God, I hope they're not musicians. Like, I hope they're accountants. Like, please be like some sort of safe, secure like career path, because I've just gone through such a crazy struggle with it. So when like a young kid in Des Moines comes up to me and is like, I love your music, like I'm so inspired by you, I'm going to be just like you. Like, I am sometimes torn between being like, don't do it, or being like, yo, like chase your dreams. Yes, do it, go for it, like send it, you know, like it's a bit of a toss up for me. So I'm wondering what you girls think about what that is, like how to deal with it.
It's funny you say that. I literally just had to talk about this on my Twitch stream, because I feel like a lot of people who ask me that are expecting this. Follow your dreams. I dropped everything I love. I dropped everything in my life and just put everything into my music, and it happened. And when I think that's such a misleading story, because so many artists have privilege, have help, have parents who are supporting them. There's so many different stories here, and I never want to say like, I just stopped everything I was doing and pursued my dreams and it will work for you, because I feel like that's such a fucking lie, because that's not what it's like at all. So like, I always try to stay honest. Like, if you love music, want to be a musician, make it your hobby first. Keep your side job, keep your side hustle, pay your bills, pay your rent. Like, I'm never going to tell anyone just to drop what you're doing and focus on what your dream, because at the end of the day, I did that, and I ended up moving home and being like, I have nothing. I wish I would have had my side job. I wish I would have had these other things. I wish I would have known it's not that easy. Because in your head, seeing someone you look up to say, just stop what you're doing and follow your dreams and put everything.
If you want it enough.
Yes. If you want it enough, it'll happen. Like, you're like, this is my idol. They're telling me this. Let's go. I'm like, I don't want to be that. I never want to set a false story up. My parents were wonderful and supported me and helped me pay rent my first year out of college. That was a privilege that I had that I cannot say to anyone, just go and do it, because I had a little bit of help from my parents at first, which is like, I want people to know that it's real. I know it's not a fun story, because a lot of people want to say I came from nothing and I was just on the streets making music and I became that's so rare. So rare. I never want to set anyone up to think that's a reality when it's so not a reality. Like, keep your side hustle, watch your mental health. Like, music is amazing. Of course, follow your dreams, but do it smart. Don't crush yourself and put all your eggs in one basket because a famous DJ told you that's what they did, because you don't know the full story. You don't know the full story of what they had to help them and what they got to get there. So that's why I always want to be honest. And I love that you said that, because being honest is just so important, and not telling people just that this fairy tale exists for us and we just became famous. I mean, this became successful. It's such a grind. Less than 1% of musicians can pay their fucking rent. It's such a grind. I've been doing it for 6 years, still grinding, still can't pay rent sometimes. It's rough. Social media means nothing, you know? Just like, be realistic, I think is important.
Is that statistic true?
I mean, to people, like, it's like 1%. In pop, it's like less than 1%. Even like get a show, you know, it's like, it's such a demand, especially for women too, right? Like, such a demand, such a scary job, and such a risk, that like, if you don't have a little bit of help or a little bit of anything in your back pocket, like, it's so hard to make it, because as you guys know, you have to pay for artwork, engineering, mix and mastering, touring. I lost money on my first tour. There is so much outgo that you don't realize that, like, if you can't just start from zero and have $0 and just do a musician, there's so much cost to even get a foot in the door. So you have to have that.
You're running a business. You're running a small business. Like, at the end of the day, you have to, like, for me, at the craziest time in my career, our tours were still breaking even a lot of the times, because we were investing so much money into the tour itself the tour cost so much that we just looked at it as a promotional device. It wasn't
100%.
like, this is how we're going to make our profit. It was like, this is how we're going to build our brand so that we can make profit at festivals.
Absolutely.
Like we literally, like, that was our business structure, was like, okay, let's put $1 million into production on tour and semi trucks to bring it around everywhere and eat all the costs. And then when we get to play our next festival, we can charge X amount of dollars. So there was a structure to it. But I'll say, like, CRAY, I hear what I love what you're saying about this. Like, be straight up with people, but also I find it difficult to not, like, I want to, like, encourage young kids to do cool shit. I dropped out of school. Like, I straight up dropped out of school. I did make it from the bottom, like, straight up. No help from mom and dad, no nothing. But I will tell kids that. I'll be like, yo, it was not easy. It was crazy. And most of your competition did have help from mom and dad.
Yes.
Like, that is something that was like a weird reality check for me coming into music. I had seen so many movies and was just kind of listening to the songs, and I was like, oh, everybody everyone that's here just worked as hard as they could, and that's why they're here. And when you get to, like, a place in music where you're, like, with at festivals, 90% maybe had, like, a lot of alternatives and wound up doing music, you know, or, like, went to, like, really crazy music schools and, like, and got to where they're at. It's not so, like, started from the bottom. So I do try and share that with kids when I meet them. I'm like, you know, you just have to understand, like, the world is not fair, and nothing exemplifies that more than the music industry. When you get up here, you're like, oh, your dad, oh, nice to meet your dad, Dr. So-and-so. You're like, oh, damn, like, my dad's a fucking mechanic. Like, it's like, you know, you just have that idea.
Yeah, I think it's really damaging when an artist had several helps of hands for their career and they say, follow your dreams. That's what I did. I just put everything into what I love. And they didn't say that they had the investment. They didn't say that they had, you know, Billie Eilish's manager also helping. Like, you know, there's, like, so many different cards I think people should just be honest about, because there's no hate on it. There's no hate if your mom helped you. There's no hate if you had a connection here and here that helped you. I don't think there's any, like, people don't want to hear that story. I don't think that's a problem. I think it's just being honest of how you got to where you are. So then kids can go, okay, maybe I shouldn't quit my part-time job yet. Maybe I should pay my rent, my debt first, and then maybe I'll stop. You know what I mean? Like, I just think, like, being honest and being open, and, like, it's just so much better. Because I know I was a kid going, I'm going to do exactly what my idol did. I'm going to quit my side job. I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to do it. And I had $0. And guess what happened? I turned right back and went home. And I was like, I failed. Like, you know, just, like, having to, like, be honest about that, I think, is so important. So you don't have to, like, this industry is rough, you know, getting in here is rough.
It's the same as when you're looking at hiring an agent or hiring a manager. I always tell people, I'm like, you'll know when you need one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's when you're so overwhelmed and inundated with, like, the people being like, you need to do this, you need to do that, yeah, and you're like, I can't keep up. Then you need somebody to step in and help that. But anyways, we can move on. I just had that guy. I was wondering what you think about that.
Okay, and there was something, CRAY, that you mentioned at the beginning there when you were talking about the facade of everything. You talked about loss, the financial loss, specifically over this past year with shows going away. And I think a lot of people are very aware that the music industry took a detrimental loss, but how many folks are talking about what that did to their mental health, and what changed for you with your mental health over this past year? If anyone wants to share any personal stories, it doesn't all have to be bad, maybe things that you went through, but also some positive ways that you learned to cope or work through the things that you experienced.
I think it was a roller coaster, man. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but, like, it was like, God bless, actually, I can force myself to break, force myself to not go on tour, force myself to listen to myself and relax. And the other side is I'm making no money. Now I'm in debt. What am I going to do? If touring just makes me money, this is not a business model that I should be doing. And it made me rethink everything about my entire life. And also just sitting at home every day as a musician, we're always going, making content, only in one spot. There's no tour content. There's no easy content. I'm sitting here like, what do they want to see me sitting at home crying and reading a book? Like, there was such a roller coaster. There was parts that were really beautiful that I got to take a break and listen to myself and focus on my relationship and get a dog and, like, do those certain life things that I don't think I would have done. But there's also the other side of, like, I'm worthless. I'm making $0. How am I going to pay rent? I had to move out. Like, how are we going to do all this? So I think it was really a roller coaster of, like, just, like, growth through this year as a musician.
Yeah, I agree. A big major roller coaster. I think, especially in the beginning of things, because we are so used to just going. When everything stopped, immediately everyone was like, okay, everyone's got to be streaming now, which like CRAY, you were ahead of everyone. You didn't have to hustle to buy a webcam, but everyone was like rushing to continue the next thing. Yeah. And like for a second I was like trying to do that, and then I realized that like DJing on live streams severely depressed me. I couldn't do it, and so many people got joy from it. It made them feel connected. It made me feel so fucking depressed to be in my room by myself, like DJ. I couldn't, because
making no money, not being able to pay rent. Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
I was like, this is not making me feel good at all. So I was like, I've been doing this for a decade now. Let me allow myself to take this break. And it was the first time I've been able to take the break, because, there's just shows all the time. There's the next thing you got to do. And it was finally like, okay, this isn't making me money if I do it, and it's not making me feel good. So why the hell am I doing it right now? Let me allow myself to stop. And so when people are like, do you want to do this live, whatever, like it's no money, but it's a fundraiser for other people who like, they're going to get money, but you're not. I was like, I need to just take a break and allow myself to have that. And I did. And having that helped me reassess things and realign and be like, okay, what was I doing before that I did not enjoy, but I was just doing it because it was part of, what was working? What was in alignment and what was out of alignment? What do I need to pivot? What do I want to do moving forward? All thoughts. And sometimes we're like so hopeful and great and like, oh, I figured it out and I know what I want to do now and I know how I want things to be different. And then others are like, but what if that doesn't work? Right. And so it's just lots and lots of ups and downs. But at the end of the day, as insane and crazy as this last year and a half now has been, I feel really blessed to have the forced break, because if that wasn't there, what would we have been doing? We would have just kept running.
Just continued. Yeah, we were just going to continue this game.
Kept in the rat race of it, and not really reassessed like what is working, what's not, what makes me feel good, what doesn't, what do I want to keep? All these things that in a normal job, you have that. I think Josh, you mentioned that, like that period of like, okay, like here's your assessment time. What's been going on for the last quarter? What do we need to change? What do we need to move? I feel like we don't do that. We're just constantly rushing to the next thing and chasing the next thing. And so yeah, it's been interesting.
So crazy.
Yeah, I'll say that too. I second and third what you guys said about just the forced break. That was huge for me. I've been doing it since I was a kid, so having this be my first real time off was so necessary, and I loved it. I was like needing it and craving it, so it wasn't even like, there was a bit of an adjustment where I was like DJing for my kids. I was like, please give me some attention, and I was like, I needed like to perform. Like there was that, like I'm still a ham at the end of the day, but like for real, I was really just happy to not have to deal with the tug of war of like finding childcare and like, my partner and my co-parent like travels for work as well, and we would have to juggle like who gets to go. Like sometimes we get booked on the same day, and like we have to choose who takes the booking, and like, well, this one I get paid more, but this one has more value for you because it's for X client, so it just cut that out. So that's been like really nice. And now with things picking back up, I'm just, suffering and full of anxiety about what it's going to be like when I have to go back on the road.
Yeah.
So, that's just where I'm at. And like CRAY, you said you got a dog, I feel like that's not to compare my children to dogs, but like that was a thing for me, is like I never had a pet because I was always touring. So I was like, something I was like, that's not for me. I can't have a pet because I'm always gone. And then I had children, and it was like, okay, now I'm going to do this. But there was just so much of a juggling and like tightrope situation that for the last year and a half, I've really enjoyed just being able to take my kids to school, take them to whatever therapies and sports and stuff that they have, just like right on schedule. So I'm going to deal with it however I have to, and rely heavily on my co-parent, my partner. But yeah, that's something that I really enjoyed for the break, and I'm gonna miss it now that things are going back to normal.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking about that though, how are you guys dealing with the anxiety of things going back? Because I've been turning down shows. I'm like terrified.
I'm honestly, I have a tour coming up, and I've been talking to my therapist about it at length, because even social settings, like I've been going to, like, they had the first Brownies Lemonade in LA. Even that was socially anxiety inducing. Like even just being around and socializing as a DJ again, like backstage, like the whole thing was just like, I was like, it's been so long.
And I was like,
yeah, I like
can't
forgot how to act as a person. I literally was just like, well, what do we do now? Like and then me and Hayden literally looked at each other and we went, do you want to go home? Like we're like, let's just go home and watch movies. Like now we still on our weekdays, like we used to go out all the time. We used to just be 24/7 out the DJ world, right? Now we literally on our days off, like still sit at home and watch movies. Like it was like the COVID has still stayed with us, and we love those moments that we've learned to like actually enjoy each other's company and like not have to always be out and FOMO and not always having to be like out at the club. Like it feels so good to be like, no, I'm good, but also now I'm anxious because I'm touring soon, and I'm like, it's like in my head's like Twilight Zone. I like go on the decks and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, how do I do this?
I think that's go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I was going to say, just I'll tell you this, like I have that anxiety, but I also, when I was touring every single day, I had that anxiety before every show. Like, I don't know if it's like imposter syndrome or what, but like, I was just like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I go up there and I could do it with my eyes closed and my hands tied behind my back. Like, it'll be fine. That's kind of how it's been for my entire career, but I still have that anxiety. Like it is now getting to the point where I had a dream last night that I was going to a show and I realized I hadn't promoted it at all. Like I had never posted about it. So, so I was like, oh, cool. Like I'm going into my first show and I didn't even share the flyer like on social media. Like I forgot to, or whatever. And it's like, it starts to sort of work its way into my, like, into my dreams and into my daily thoughts, whatever. So I don't know, to answer your question, Kittens, I don't know what I'm doing to cope with it. I'm just sort of like struggling with it and hoping for the best.
Yeah, doing what I used to do, show up and hope and just be like, it's riding a bike, right?
Exactly. Just rely on my tenure. I've been doing it's all I can do. I'm not a mechanic. I'm a DJ. So it's like, I'll show up and do what I do.
And ease into it. And everything that you guys have been saying, take what you want, what you learned from COVID, like Kittens, how you were saying, make it count, talk to your management, talk to your teams and figure out what did I love about it and how can I kind of make some balance going forward, and I'm hearing a lot of artists say, I'm not doing that grind like I did. I'm going to make these shows count. You're not going to have me do a show in Detroit and then do one in LA the next day. Let's talk about this routing differently, baby steps into it.
I think having a whole year of no shows has allowed me to now say no. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's like normalized not being on the road for me. And it's the same with my boyfriend, where it's like now we can kind of, those shitty shows that we don't want to do, now we can be like, you know what? I had a year of no shows and survived. I can say no to this one. Right. I don't have to miss a birthday. I don't have to miss Christmas this year again because I survived an entire year without touring. I think I can handle this. So it really gave me that validation that it's okay to skip on things, which it's hard for us because like money, career, it's hard to say no to shows. It really is. It gives me anxiety saying no to shows, like straight up.
But no is so powerful in our industry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, no is really powerful in our industry. It's a privilege to be able to say no. Obviously, you have to be in a financial situation where you can pick and choose. But in the end, it will drive your price up to be able to say no and to be more selective about what you end up doing.
Yeah.
So I have one closing thing before we wrap things up. What advice would you give to somebody to help them delineate between when they're having a bad day versus them experiencing a pattern of need that needs to be addressed?
Keep track of it, I guess. Like journaling has been really, really helpful for me over the years, and forcing myself to do it daily so I can actually know, because I feel like before I used to be in the habit of only venting and journaling when things were bad, when I wasn't feeling well. And now doing it when things are good as well helps me go back and be like, okay, is this a pattern? Where are the patterns here? Is this a larger issue? Is this a larger theme? Is this something that I should really address? Or is it situational? And even if it is situational, is it still something to explore and acknowledge in a more meaningful way? I think just really tracking, because we have like this, I wonder if this exists actually. But you know how they have those like period tracker apps, Josh? I'm sure you also
Yeah. Good old period tracker.
But in those, they have you track every day all your symptoms, whether you have cramps, your backaches, you're cranky, you're ovulating, you're eating, whatever is going on. There should be something like that for mental health where you can just be like, oh shit, I was like not good for this many days out of the month. Wow. Okay. I need to really do something different here.
Yeah, I think a big keyword is just being really self-aware and just being honest with yourself and realizing it's okay to not be okay, and to see your fellow artists and just know that we all are going through the exact same things you are also going through. Like, we are not above anybody. We're not, just because we're musicians, we're not like, we don't have any of that issues. Like, just know that your favorites are also dealing with the same exact struggles you are. You're not alone, and it's okay to ask for help and get help. And it's easy once you get your foot through the door. Like, once you get through, it's hard to make the first step, but once you do, it's smooth sailing, just like getting in there and like normalizing that I think everyone needs a therapist in general, or any type of way to ask for help, because I think we all have our own shit, and it's really helpful to kind of have a mediator help you through that and normalize it for yourself.
I personally can be kind of hard on myself with depression, where I'm just like, I almost like deny it. I'm like, I don't want to admit it, because then it becomes real and then I have to deal with it and yada yada. So I found when I was in my 20s a lot, I just was like, let me just like keep moving. But as I've gotten older, I realized that there's some things I call my canaries in the coal mine, where I just kind of see these little telltale signs that it's more than just a daily issue. If I'm eating poorly, or if I'm drinking excessively, or there's certain things where I'm just like, okay, if these things are happening, then it's a bigger issue. And I think that comes with experience and living with depression. But like, try and see tangible things that you notice that happen only in the event that you're having a depressive like episode versus having a bad day. You can obviously make the distinction between like weather and climate. Like, if it's a rainy day, that's one thing. If it's been rainy for a year, then that's something that maybe you need to address.
That's right. And it's not even a year. You should look at 2 weeks, clinically
Right.
speaking. But I think everything you guys are saying is correct. And the more we again, have panels like this and talk about it, people will reach out to you and be that bridge also for someone else, right? If you notice things, you start, don't try and diagnose, just say, hey, tell me what's going on, get vulnerable. Again, telling management to do that with their artists too is so important, and find them those resources, get them the help, but I think everything that you guys all have shared and said is exactly right.
Mm-hmm. That was so lovely. And I want to end on an even better note. Is there any last closing statement that you would like to share with everyone that's watching that might be in need, or would like some validation, or just wants to hear something good?
It's going to be all right. Always.
Yeah.
No matter how hard it seems, no matter how tough things get, it doesn't matter. It will always be all right. All you have to do is keep going. That's the most important part to any career, any relationship, anything, is to be present, be mindful, and then to just keep moving.
It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. It's like emotions are okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. And it's true though. Even like my darkest of days have passed, and I didn't think I'd make it through them, and I did. So we're pretty strong individuals, and you're not alone. Also, you're not alone. We're all dealing with this.
And there's one thing that's brought me a lot of comfort, and I think I learned it from or I read it in some random like Buddhist-y type vibe book, but everything is temporary, the good and the bad. Everything is temporary, no matter what is going on. The patterns and the waves will just continue to go. And yeah, it's like nothing is going to just stay hard and miserable forever. You can rely on change to come always.
Yeah.
And there's help and there's a lot of resources. You know, anyone listening out there that is any music professional, not just an artist, go to MusiCares.org. We can help. We can get you those resources, and we can help you financially.
This is amazing. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your time with us today. Thank you, CRAY. Thank you, Kittens. Yummy too. Thank you, Erica, for joining us for this really special episode of Unmute with Output. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.